Well, welcome everybody to Viva Virtuoso live podcast, episode number 6. We're up to 6. It's been fun so far. It's Saturday, April 10th, and we have today with us a just lovely and talented guest. She probably won't sing her praises as much as I will, but I'll make sure I do a yeoman's job at it. She is a true violin virtuoso. Has been in the playing in the competitive environment from teenager, pre-teenager. She has won some phenomenally major competitions as well as regional competitions. Played with orchestras across the country and internationally. And she is the lovely and talented Annelle Gregory. Hello and welcome to Viva Virtuoso.
Hi, Warren. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited for the interview.
Well, it's a joy. And I believe the title of today's show is Allegro ma non troppo. So, uh, for those that don't speak Italian or maybe aren't musicians, a loose meaning of that is, you know, lively and somewhat fast, but not too much so. And I think as we get through today's episode, you'll find a very high spirited, high energy person, but that plays with an analytical mind. And we hope to bring that out and talk a lot about that today. And maybe the best place to start, it's always seems to be where we start, is your earliest musical childhood memories.
Uh,
What do you remember in terms of listening, hearing, playing, seeing?
when I was young, my mother played the koto, which is like a Japanese harp, very long. And I used to hear that even before I was born. She would play when she was pregnant with me. My grandmother also sang a lot, and I lived with them. So I grew up hearing a lot of music, a lot of different kinds of music from classical, Japanese, jazz, everything. I started piano when I was 4 years old, so that was my first instrument, and violin later when I was 8. I actually played a lot of different instruments and a lot of different genres growing up. So my parents were very encouraging of try this, see everything, everything there is to see, everything there is to play, and maybe you can choose something that you're good at or that you like. So I grew up, I was doing fiddling and jazz on violin and piano. I played rock. I played bass guitar and electric guitar in my school's rock and jazz band for a while. So it was just kind of a whole different. They brought everything towards me, so I could choose what I liked best.
And growing up in that environment, the stereotype of the virtuoso child is the prodigy that, like you said, you started being exposed to musical instruments at the age of 4, but usually, you're playing for the king by the age of 6. You've written your first symphony by the age of 9, and and you have 34 degrees by the time you're 11 years old. And you have a slightly different story to tell about that in terms of really maturing and adhering to music as a discipline and a way of life, and something that you kind of consciously decided you wanted to pursue a little later than a lot of people.
Yeah, actually, I was totally not a prodigy. I was pretty much the opposite of a prodigy. When I first started violin, I didn't really take it seriously. It was just kind of a hobby that I really wanted to do, but I was pretty bad at it. I was definitely not at the top of my class, not at the bottom, but just an average student. Um, and I got better as I grew up. So my learning curve was kind of, starts like this, and then it really, really shot up as I got to maybe like, 11, 12, and later than that. Actually, I didn't even think of violin as a possibility of a career until my jazz and rock teacher one day jokingly told me, "Oh, you could be Juilliard material the way you play violin." And he really didn't mean it, but I thought he was serious. So I went home that day. I thought, huh, maybe I really could make violin my career. And after that, I really started practicing and kind of started focusing on violin and classical music and making that my life.
And at the same time, were you dabbling in your other instruments and your other genres?
Always. I've never really let go of the other ones. I still to this day play, bass guitar and electric guitar, and I love listening to other kinds of music as well. I love hard rock music and 80s like hair metal type music. So I never let any of it go. I kind of let it just inspire me and allow me to like experiment more with the things that I do for a career.
Well, as the saying goes, one nation, hair nation, right?
Yeah.
uh, okay, so at what point were you introduced to a violin teacher that really ramped up your playing skills and really got you ready? Who was that person?
So when I was almost 13, I switched to teacher Michael Seitlin and his wife Irina Seitlin in San Diego. And those teachers for me became almost like my second parents. So I was at their house for at least twice a week for lessons, sometimes more. Also for chamber music once a week, and then usually every weekend we had a recital. So I spent like at least 4 or 5 days at their house, just learning everything possible from them, lessons going sometimes until 10 o'clock at night. So they really influenced not only me as a violinist, but me as a person, because they've known me since I was 12, and still to this day, I see them very, very often, and we always talk about things. I edit music for them. So they helped shape who I am as a person as well.
Now, as you were going through this um, change into becoming a really serious musician and taking your art very seriously, um, and spending a lot of time at your teacher's house, how did your parents fit into the mix then, in terms of the way they may have supported you, helped you?
So my parents have always been super, super supportive and encouraging. So they were never like, you have to become a violinist or you have to be a doctor. They just wanted me to find something that I would enjoy for my life, since this is what you're gonna be doing for the next 50 years. You might as well enjoy it. So they allowed me to experiment with a lot of things, and if I did find something like violin, classical music, then they would kind of push me in that direction, help me by my mom would Google competitions I could enter or scholarships that I could submit things for. But they were never like, you must practice, you must do this, because they always wanted me to enjoy what I was doing.
And how much did you practice?
Well, probably not a lot for a lot of people. The most I've ever practiced in one day in my life is 4.5 hours, and that was like completely out of the blue. Normally, I only practice about 2 hours, maybe three if I have like a big concert or something coming up. But I try to be as efficient as possible so that I don't have to spend a lot of time, wasting going over things that I don't need to do.
Tell us a little bit about that philosophy and some of the technique behind it, because I'm sure there's a lot of us that would like to not practice as much as we do. I mean, it's time, it's wear and tear, it's a lot of things. So if you have any valuable insights, please share.
Sure. So, for me, the most important thing is that you have to be able to do something correctly more times than incorrectly. I always tell my students when they're practicing, if you played something correctly only once, but you took, let's say, 7 mistakes to get there, then you have 7 times of playing it incorrectly versus only one time playing it perfectly. So you have to get to a point where you can play this, 8 times correctly and 4 times incorrectly. Then you have more of a chance to get something. But in going to that times correctly, it's really important that you practice things at different speeds. So a lot of people just do like super slow and then they try to play at tempo, which sometimes works, but more often it's a little bit shaky when you go that fast. So medium tempo is very important, and then also just like changing your surroundings. So I used to practice a lot, same room, facing the same direction, with the same music stand height, everything was identical. And then when you get to a recital, everything's all different. So I started actually, not only moving around and changing the position of a music stand, but even practicing in a different room, practicing with a blindfold on, all sorts of different types of things, anything I could do to throw myself off. And now it's pretty hard to make me distracted during a performance.
So, um, on that same topic, or on the topic of practice, do you include technique in your in any kind of capacity in your regular practice, scales or
Uh,
etudes or whatever it might be?
Occasionally, I do some kind of exercises, usually not too many etudes or scales. I didn't grow up practicing like that. Um, it was more what was difficult in the pieces that I was attempting. So I would use little sections of pieces as my etudes. So, for example, like the Sibelius Concerto has some really difficult octaves at the end, and I would start my practice sessions for a few months just with those octaves at the end of Sibelius. Other times I would start it with, maybe some bow exercises, or, really difficult bowing or fingerings that I had in other pieces. So I used parts of the pieces as my etudes so that when I had to play the pieces later, it was very, very easy for me.
Uh, Tell us also, because it was around this time, I believe, when you started experimenting and feeling out competitive competitions. Is
Mm.
that right?
Yeah,
Walk
I
us through a
entered
little bit of that.
Yeah, I entered my first competition when I was 13. I did terribly. I didn't win anything. But my teacher, Michael Seitlin, always encourages students to enter basically as many as we could during the year. So there were some years when I was entering 1 to 3 competitions every single weekend between March and July. Um, but that kind of became my lifestyle. So a few months later, after my first competition, I actually won uh, the SDYS Concerto competition, and that was my first performance with an orchestra. So the prize was to be able to play with the Youth Symphony at Copley Symphony Hall, which was the biggest hall in San Diego. So for a 13-year-old, this was like winning the lottery. I couldn't believe it.
And that then led to more and more competitions.
Yes, basically after that, it was you get a little fuel in the fire and you go out, play more competition. Of course, you're always gonna lose more than you win. So even if one season I got really lucky, I win 7 competitions that season, that probably means I also lost 14 other competitions. So I just enter as many as possible.
Now, one of the major competitions that you won, I mean, a super major one, was the Sphinx competition. And can you tell us about that, about the competition itself, and then about the experience?
Sure. So, for those that don't know, the Sphinx organization is a Black and Latino string based organization. So, they have a competition every year nationally where they invite string players between, well, any age up to, I believe, 30 or 31 now. So, I was fortunate to be selected as one of the semifinalists. And what that means is that after the DVP round, you go to Detroit, Michigan, and you play live for a panel of judges against about 9 other semifinalists. From there, 3 are picked to go on to the finals, which is a round with live orchestra. It's broadcast on TV, lots of cameras everywhere, so very high pressure environment. Um, and the winner of that one gets a very, very generous cash prize and the opportunity to be sort of promoted by Sphinx, almost like an agency. So after I won, they gave me a lot of opportunities to play with orchestras. So I was able to play with Chicago Symphony, Houston Symphony, Detroit Symphony, all these different places simply because of that connection.
And at that time, what was your final concerto that you played to win
That's Sibelius Concerto, one of my
the
favorites.
Seville? Yes, I think I heard you play that once, actually, down this way. And touring, was it mainly Sibelius that you took with you, or did you get to play different repertoire too?
Actually, yeah, we got to play all sorts of things. I haven't played Sibelius since the competition, actually. So we've
Oh,
played everything from like Vivaldi's Seasons, Tchaikovsky Concerto. Um, I mean, you name it, we've played it since then. So it's kind of up to the orchestra and me. We kind of talk it out and work something out.
and as a result of that, you also have been doing a lot of recitals too, or had been doing a lot of recitals, either
Yeah,
solo or accompanied.
yeah. Actually, Sphinx doesn't do too much of recitals, but on my own from other competitions, I often get either connections or the direct opportunity to perform recitals with piano usually. And those are usually in California area, but they can be, all over the world. I've gone play recitals in Azerbaijan, Moscow, all different places. So those ones I usually pick the program and everything myself, so it's very self-organized.
And remind us, how old were you when you won the Sphinx
I
competition?
was 21.
Okay, okay. Uh, and so prior to that, uh, we kind of covered some of your teen years, but you did something a little bit different before launching off to music school, and that also is probably worth recounting your motivations and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I actually graduated high school at 16. I was at a charter-based school, so like independent study. I was able to combine my 11th and 12th grade years and graduate early. So I didn't want to go right away to conservatory because I thought I had a lot more to learn and a lot more that I could do while I was still like school age. So I actually took a year off and did purely competitions and recitals, and that was the year that I did like 1 or 3 competitions a week every weekend. And that was very, very helpful. One, financially, of course, because every time you win a competition, usually there's money involved, but also performance wise, I became so much better during that year because when you're just performing every weekend routinely, maybe different repertoire every weekend, you get so used to it that you don't have time to be nervous anymore. So one day, I woke up early, played a concert in Los Angeles. I drove back down to San Diego the same day and played a competition later with different repertoire. And you don't have time to be nervous when you have something like that. It just becomes routine and even enjoyable.
And then after that year, you made a educational choice.
Yeah, after that, I went to USC, University of Southern California, Thornton School of Music. So that's where I did my bachelor's degree. I was studying with Glenn Dicteroff he was a concertmaster of the New York Philharmonic for about 30 something years.
And during that time, you also had some interesting projects in terms of completing your studies. No?
Sure, sure, I did. I actually recorded my first CD while I was at USC. So I had a pianist friend that I met there, and he was very interested in Rachmaninoff. So uh, I thought, well, let's find something of Rachmaninoff to record with this guy. And we ended up finding just a ton of transcriptions, and that's how we ended up recording our first CD together. Um, but also, I believe I think it was right after USC, the same summer, I went to Moscow Conservatory to study there, and also the next year. And I learned so much just in the few weeks that I was there. We had lessons that lasted sometimes 5 hours, and then the next day you just go right back into the same thing. My teacher there was very, very picky in a way about sound, and that every single note has to be perfect, has to be singing, glowing. And I was pretty good before I went there, I think, but after coming back and now being able to hear everything, in real time, it made just a huge difference in the way I play, the way I record, everything. So that was a big thing for me.
So is that what you had referred to before when we were talking as the Russian school?
Yeah, yeah. So the I mean, the Moscow Conservatory was the Russian school I was talking about, but my playing style is more of the Russian violin school. So, of course,
Yes,
growing up.
and this is what I was trying to get at there. Maybe
Ah,
you could tell us a little bit about the history of the Russian style of playing violin.
sure, sure. So, I mean, of course, we all know many violinists, composers, any instrument that came from Russia. So they have a long history of doing very high quality music over there. I grew up with Michael and Irina Seitlin, who, of course, are Russian and studied in the Russian violin school. So much of what I play is derived from them and from their teachers. Uh, but when I also went to Russia, then it was confirmed to me that yes, you do play a little bit differently, like this old style school, which is more of kind of like hard on your sleeve kind of playing, like rough and raw, but also very detailed, very accurate, very everything's analytical but passionate. So that's the combination I like best about pretty much everything in life, and that's why I like that style so much.
And then that project led to another project. Is that correct? The CD, that is?
Yes, actually. USC has a different kind of scholarship in which the graduating seniors can submit a project that it's called like Discovery Scholarship. So if you make a project during your school years that is kind of innovative and nobody's done it before, something that's very important in your field, then they'll give you a $10,000 scholarship when you graduate to be used for another project. So I submitted the first CD that I did with the pianist, the Rachmaninoff CD, and we actually won, and we got $10,000. Well, I got the $10,000, and so my teacher suggested, well, why don't you make another CD but with orchestra? So that's how we got to Ukraine for recording my latest CD, the Taneyev and Rimsky-Korsakov.
And just a little note to people who are watching the live stream. We are going to have a portion of question and answer in a little bit. So I see some questions coming in. Keep them coming in. We appreciate them. And we'll cover as many as we can. Um, so, uh, uh, so just how well did you do at Colburn?
At where? Sorry?
At Colburn.
Colburn.
How did you?
At USC?
Yeah, or I mean, yes, at
Yeah.
USC.
Well, I mean, if you look at it on paper, I graduated first in my class. I got a bunch of honors that USC gives out. So on paper, yes, I did very well, I think. But for me, USC was more about finding my style as an artist. So academics were very important to me. I always wanted to get straight A's, and I did at a big cost to my own social life and everything. But the process of just finding all the different things you can do with the violin, with music, and especially working with my pianist Alexander, uh, he showed me a lot of things musically, not necessarily like in a teaching way, but just playing with him sometimes every day for weeks. Uh, I learned so much about how to interact with other musicians, how to play really good chamber music, and really even just how to listen. So that whole journey of 4 years and realizing how much more there is to know about violin, that was what I got most out of USC.
Okay, we're going to travel back across to the other continent for a second, and I want you to relay your experience with the concert in Kiev. And for those also that are listening, we will run down Annelle's social media presence. But for those that do go to a YouTube channel, which I highly recommend, if I were you, the first two things I would listen to were the Rimsky-Korsakov and the Taneyev from the Kiev concert. So with that, maybe tell us tell us how you got into that and just the experience there.
Yeah. So that concert was actually the night before the recording of the CD with the same pieces to me from Rimsky-Korsakov. That was probably the most exciting concert of my life so far. So we went there playing, of course, all Russian music. Rimsky-Korsakov, Taneyev, and even the encore Prokofiev was also Russian. We had a Russian conductor, and me, an American, and a Ukrainian symphony. Of course, everybody knows at that time, and even now still, those three countries are not getting along so well. So it was kind of nerve-wracking even just to fly over there thinking, are they going to accept this kind of a concert at the Kiev Conservatory, which is a state-sponsored conservatory and one of the biggest halls in the country. But surprisingly, we actually had such a big crowd there that it became standing room only. And when we went out on stage, everybody absolutely loved us. We got 6 curtain calls and encore, and it was one of the best nights of my life, really. Just the connection between Yablonsky, the conductor, and that orchestra. Everyone was so friendly and so happy to be making music. No matter what country the music came from or who's playing it, where they're from, it was just a wonderful night to remember.
Now, one thing that's remarkable, I mean, in many of your performances, but particularly remarking on those, was the visual aesthetic that you brought to the performance, and that seems to be something that's important, near and dear to you. No?
Yes, very much. I always believe that if you're going to a concert, you're also going to see the concert. You're not just going to hear the music. Otherwise, go buy my CD, please. So if you're going to see something, you should act as an entertainer. And that's really what we are as musicians. When we're on stage, not in a studio, we're entertainers. So if somebody wants to come see me, I want to make sure that they not only hear some great music, but also that they feel something from the music. Whatever's going through my head that relates to the music, I want them to feel that, and I want them to be able to see something that they remember. So that's everything from I need to pick a dress that kind of matches the music. I don't want to wear something outrageous if I'm playing Mozart, but if I'm playing Carmen, for example, I want to wear something that's very strong and definitive. But that also translates to even the physical movement on stage. I used to be very shy about kind of moving around, making facial expressions. I was always afraid I would look silly on stage, or it's got to be too much and look fake. But the more I grew up and watched myself and watched other great musicians, it's really, really important to be able to convey what you want to the audience, your emotions, and you can best do that by movement and facial expressions that are tasteful to go with the music.
And you do that quite well. Like I said, if you watch that concert from Kiev, particularly the endings are very dramatic. And one thing I will say is there always is that trap, and I've seen artists do it, and at times like you, I've been self-conscious about it. That if you emote too much, it looks contrived, corny, silly.
Yeah.
And so bravo for finding a way to be commanding when you need to be commanding, being gentle when you need to be gentle, being soaring when you need to be soaring, without pushing the audience into mild laughter.
Thank you.
Let's talk about it. You told me an interesting story about perfect pitch,
Ah,
and a lot of people that discover they have perfect pitch, they just find that are able to recreate sounds or produce sounds on command. and it's kind of a complete package. And once they're challenged to do it, they're just able to do it. It didn't quite work out that way with you, did it?
No. Yeah, I to my knowledge, I was not born with perfect pitch. And it wasn't until I was about 10 years old that my mom was playing koto one day, and she was playing some note over and over, and I asked her, is that an F? And she said, oh my gosh, yes, that's an F. You have perfect pitch. So, well, no, that's the only note I can identify right now. But over the next couple of weeks, I was able to identify like F, C, D, and G, later A. And eventually, several months later, maybe a year, I'm able to identify all the white keys on the piano, at will. But the black keys came maybe a year after that. So it was a really interesting kind of progression, and I think I attribute that later to those are the notes I heard most. So those are the ones I memorized first. Black keys were kind of, you don't hear those being played as much, so they came in later. Same with the upper and lower registers of the piano. They came much later. So, I mean, now I can hear anything I want to at any time, but it was definitely a developed thing.
Yes, I definitely wanted our audience to hear that, and probably those with perfect pitch will raise their eyebrows and say, "Wow, I've never heard it done that way." But hey, the ends are accomplished, and it's a wonderful tool if you have it. So here you are. You graduated first at USC. You win a major competition. You're touring and playing with the best orchestras in country and all over the world. You're performing recitals. Probably have a little repertoire of students too when you're back at your home base. And then 2020 hits.
Yeah.
And probably for someone at the stage of your career, just like the star is on its ascendancy, essentially, coming off of these great things. You're primed to have some of your best years, right? I mean, typically in a concert career, that's how it works often.
Right.
So what went through your mind when this happened, and tell us how you responded to that.
It was kind of unbelievable at first because 2020, I had a lot of very important concerts booked and things that I thought, this is gonna be my year, and then everyone's locked down, can't do anything. So for a little bit, I was just thinking, well, am I just gonna sit here? Am I gonna change careers, quit violin? What am I gonna do? But then it occurred to me one day that I have some video editing skills. I have some audio editing skills that I learned in college. I wonder what I do with that. Maybe I could make a video of, a really simple piece like Tice Meditation and post it on YouTube, see what happens. And it actually turned out a lot better than I thought. It was a lot harder than I thought too, but after I made the first video like that and people seemed to enjoy it, I thought, well, I have a lot of little easier pieces like this. I could do this for a while. So this is kind of how my music video little era got started, was just because of this. Of course, I've learned so much more than I knew right at the beginning when I made that first video. But it's been quite a journey learning how to edit things and to green screen. And for my latest video, I made 5 of me. So I have a pianist, 2 violinists, a violist, and a soloist. And I green screened myself in, and now I have like a mini orchestra and soloist playing together. It's really gratifying for me because I can also then arrange things, which I've been doing since I was like 12. So now I take whatever pieces I love, for example, Rachmaninoff piano preludes. I was always jealous that I couldn't play those on piano, but now I just write them for 2 violins and viola, and I can make a video out of it.
And those seem to be doing pretty well, and they're certainly very entertaining. I have to say, not only do you have good taste in music, but aesthetically, you're in some beautiful surroundings, costumed differently for the different parts. So it's a very much of a sensory experience watching you do those videos, and we hope to see more of them, regardless of what happens. Maybe you have a Guns N' Roses for strings in you
Yeah,
that we haven't heard yet.
I have an arrangement of Metallica Fade to Black already, so I'm hoping to get that done.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm really going to want to be curious to see your costume choices for that. Um, and so now that we're in 2021, how are you feeling about things? I mean, I know you're going to continue to do your videos and continue to get that kind of exposure, and they keep getting better and better. But how are you doing otherwise?
Well, concerts are looking like they may come back for me. So I have a couple that are booked already for like the end of this year, and some that are scheduled for next season as well. So it looks like we'll be able to start going back to that, and I can go back to doing what I thought I would be doing for a career, which that's what I really love most is performing for people, a live audience right there. So we can have this connection because music videos I love doing that, but it's just me. It's me in my living room with a green screen. So it's not quite as satisfying when you get to like perform and somebody's right there watching you and saying what's gonna happen next. But I think now that things are looking better, I'll be able to combine those. So I hope to be making music videos as long as I can still film stuff and hopefully with more concerts in the middle.
Now, you really seem to enjoy the concerts with an orchestra and playing concerti repertoire. And I'd like you to, because what you do, there's a lot of people that would like to do, uh, and will never do. So for those people that wonder what it's like, there's that, and I'm going to take you to a particular moment. There's a moment where you're backstage. The concert master is giving his A out. The orchestra's tuned out. Uh, Conductor goes out, and now it's your turn to walk out. Right as you are about to enter that stage and then receive the applause from the people, tell us what emotion is going through you at that time.
Uh,
What does that feel like?
Mostly excitement. The best moment and really the most defining moment, I think, for any performer, whether you're a musician or actor, when you walk on stage, people can tell, like, if you're confident, if you think you're gonna give a good show. So for me, one, I love walking on stage. Who wouldn't? Everybody's clapping for you, right? But you have to walk out there and give the impression that not only you know what you're doing, but you're happy doing it. You love doing it. This is what you were born to do. So walking on stage is like that's the best part. Walking off stage is also the best part for the same reason. But it's just kind of that we're gonna give a good show and we're going to we're gonna have a good great time up here.
And the curtain calls aren't bad either.
Never.
Well, we're going to jump onto some audience questions that we have. If you want to take a shot at them,
Sure.
we have a question from Virginia, who is asking about memorization
Uh,
and the process, including photographic memory.
yes. So I'm fortunate to have photographic memory, which means I can remember things as they are on the page. If you ask me, where's the specific note, I can tell you, page 6, line 3, second measure in the middle, whatever. So it makes memorization for long concertos much easier this way because then you have a photographic memory, which is visual. You have muscle memory in your fingers, and you have this oral memory, what the melody sounds like. So anytime one of those fails, you have a bunch of others to rely on. It makes memorization a lot easier for me.
So does that photographic memory roll over to, I don't know, chocolate chip cookie recipes and
Yeah,
Dostoevsky and
unfortunately, it means I can usually only watch a movie once.
oh. I never even thought of that. I never even thought of that. But you can play it out for others.
Yeah, I can remember pretty much everything.
Another question. You've played some virtual concerts organized by others since the pandemic hit. Are we going to see more of those? And how do they differ for you from doing in-person live performances?
So yes, you will see more of those. I have 2 more that have already been recorded. We're just waiting for the actual broadcast. I hope we will do some more of these in the future, even after this is over, for just posterity. It is very different from a live concert because, one, you can do it again if you mess up, but two, there's no audience, so there's no connection with the audience. I try to emulate that connection as much as I can, just by thinking maybe there's somebody out there, even if it's the videographer. But it's a lot harder for me actually to play with nobody to bounce my feedback off of.
Yes. Well, hopefully there'll be tools where for those kinds of concerts, it will be apparent how people are enjoying it. You know, there's so many ways to interact now online. Hopefully those can be brought to you in such a way as to be more intimate, and I have a feeling the technology will be doing that eventually.
Yeah.
We have someone else who I'm not sure if they're asking or requesting. I think they're doing both, and they want a triple Annelle CD.
You know, I think maybe it could work out one day because I have a lot of music that I haven't even made into music videos. I mean, I'm writing all the time. I just finished an arrangement last night for another Rachmaninoff prelude. So maybe one day if I have grand opportunity or something, I will make a CD because I like this music.
Yeah, or a DVD, I guess, for that matter. You know, you could just
Oh, that too.
you're almost there, probably.
They're just stringing together now.
Another question: if you weren't a violinist or a musician, what do you think you would be?
Ah, that's interesting. When I was about 5, I wanted to be a garbage truck collector. But I think nowadays, I love animals, so maybe something with animals, like, I don't know, Humane Society, volunteer or something. Or, I love dance. I did for like so many kinds of dance when I was little: Japanese, ballet, tap, jazz, everything. So maybe I'd be a dancer. I got to start a little earlier though.
Well, maybe you can do some of your cloning, and then you can actually do a little Bob Fosse stuff out in front of yourself playing for the group, huh?
Oh, that is an idea.
um, I think we covered all of our questions, but what I want to make sure is, first of all, if you've enjoyed this broadcast, uh, we have many more to come with people. It's going to be hard to find anyone as amazing as Annelle, but we're always looking. And so if you're able to subscribe here and like this video, sure would appreciate it. But Annelle, how do we find out more about you? Give us your social media links, website, anything that you want to promote. Go for it.
So yeah, Annelle Violin is my handle for everything. So if you just go AnnelleViolin.com, that's my website, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and SoundCloud and YouTube, also under Annelle Violin. So just my first name and violin, you can find everything.
Well, I can't tell you how much of a joy it's been to first meet you and have you on our show. And we hope to see you again. And I know you're just going to be up to some really great things coming up no time soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was really fun today. And thank you so much, Nikki, for engineering this, making it possible.
Yes, that's Nikki, our producer, we're talking about. Someday we'll have to give her a microphone and take over. And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.